It's another beautiful Sunday. Welcome to Iron Port. Iron Port is brought to you by the Ghana Revenue Authority, Gold PLC, Serene Insurance, Ghana Link Network Services, Meridian Port Services, and Phoenix Insurance. The show is proudly powered by the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, GPHA, and our media partner is the Business and Financial Times, BNFT. Get the Thursday edition of the BNFT newspaper for all the insights if you miss anything this evening. Remember, you can also join us live at all our social media platforms. On Facebook, we're streaming live at Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, also at the Port of Tema. And on YouTube, we're streaming live at Iron Port. Remember that you can also join us with your comments, suggestions, and your advice on a line that will be provided for you on WhatsApp is 0538037353. We'll also open the phone lines in the course of the show for you to make your contributions towards the discussion. So grab your phones, let's get interactive. We have a very interesting topic we're discussing today in light of the clash between Iran, Israel, US. We'll be talking more about that. I'll introduce my guest to you shortly after this break. Do stay.
Good energy brings you quality choices with Goil Super XP. Available in many Goil stations nationwide. It is fortified with special additives that help your engine perform better and use less fuel. Branch into a Goil station today and energize your ride with Goil Super XP, compatible with most vehicles. Goil Super XP, Wufilia, huh? Wubefeel. Goil, good energy.
Electricity, then pay your taxes. Yeah. Our taxes, our future.
Because you see, without our taxes, we wouldn't have good roads, good schools, better hospitals, street lights, and other very important social amenities. When we pay our taxes, we give our children free and quality education. Talga, my money too small. Why should I pay my tax? Look, small. Salifo, it doesn't matter how small or big your business or income is. You still have to pay your taxes. The little taxes from each and every one of us, when put together, could give your community clean water, or that deprived school with tables and chairs. Please pay your taxes. It is your responsibility. It is your civic duty. It is the law.
Welcome to today's edition of Serene Insurance Business News. We present to you Serena.
You're right. You can complete an entire insurance process for the purchase of any motor and other insurance products, from onboarding to issuing a motor insurance sticker and policy certificate, all on WhatsApp in less than 10 minutes. Serena is simple to use and it prioritizes user ease and flexibility. You can either use voice notes or text to effortlessly issue your instant policy, cross-platform renewals, claims, and also process your payments through mobile money, Visa, and MasterCard. To engage Serena, just search for Serena Insurance on all social media handles and scan the Serena barcode or save her number 0500 517 114 and start chatting her on WhatsApp immediately.
There you have it. Serena is not just a tool. It's an innovation by Serene Insurance designed to redefine how motor and travel insurance are accessed and managed. Speed, convenience, and reliability.
MPS Terminal 3 is Africa's new state-of-the-art container terminal at Tema Port. For manufacturers, agro-processors and traders, the new port means business can be done faster. This infrastructure boost will improve Ghana's port handling capacity, connect more trading routes, and oil the engine of growth for the economy, creating greater opportunities across all sectors as Africa's markets merge and become the largest trading bloc globally. MPS, we connect, you thrive.
At Phoenix Insurance, we make the unpredictable predictable and the uncertain certain with our range of products, including motor insurance, fire insurance, engineering insurance, marine insurance, accident insurances, and all types of bonds. We have you covered. We also support you with risk management advice to enable you stay focused on your business. Take a policy with Phoenix Insurance today. We help you rise from adversity stronger and more secure. Contact us on 0302 246319 or 0302 246644 or any of our branches, agencies, and brokers spread across the nation. You can as well connect with us on our WhatsApp chatbot. EFIBA is waiting to assist you. Make the future predictable with Phoenix Insurance. Phoenix Insurance, a delightful service experience delivered with wisdom.
Welcome back to Iron Port. Remember, Iron Port is powered by GPHA. Of course, throughout the week, a lot has happened at the port and the maritime industry. Here is a recap of what you missed. The Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, in collaboration with the Federation of West African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, have organized a 2-day biomanufacturing regulation and market summit to find the way forward to manufacturing vaccines in Africa. The summit offered a high-level environment for forging strategic alliances, exploring large-scale investment prospects, and strengthening regional value chains. It brought together stakeholders in the health and environment sectors, including CEOs of chambers of commerce from ECOWAS member states, senior government officials, development partners, investors, and private sector leaders. The event also offered participants the opportunity to deliberate on strategies for strengthening regional trade, investment flows, logistics efficiency, SME competitiveness, and youth entrepreneurship within the frameworks of ECOWAS and the African Continental Free Trade Agreement AfTA. Delivering the keynote address on the theme Building a Harmonized Regulatory Framework for Biomanufacturing in West Africa, Chief Executive of the African Medicine Agency, Dr. Delise Darko, called for a system that is coherent and resilient for Africa's biomanufacturing sector.
The future we are discussing requires all of us working in alignment. It cannot be done by one group or one agency alone. I look forward to productive and forward-looking discussions that will allow us to build a system that is coherent, that is connected, that is better than we have now, that is resilient, and that will suit Africa's biomanufacturing future.
Acting Chief Executive of the Food and Drugs Authority, Professor Frimpong Mansu-Puni, speaking on operationalizing ML3 MOU, regulatory reliance and collaborative lot release, indicated COVID-19 serves as a reminder for Africa to produce its own vaccines, adding this goal cannot be achieved without a resilient and strong regulatory regime.
Our continent continues to rely on imports, well over 90%. And I'm sure that 90%, if we are to do work today, it may be 99%. Overdependence exposes us to global supply chain vulnerabilities, delays, and unpredictability. And the COVID-19 is a classical example. So there should be a consolidated assessment of market access and regulatory barriers. And there should be a defined investment and skill development priorities.
CEO of the National Vaccine Institute of Ghana, Dr. Suji Sujitete, reminded his colleagues about the 2040 target set by the African Union to manufacture 60% of all vaccines and pharmaceuticals in Africa, emphasizing the need to resolve financial challenges and release resources to achieve this ambition.
At the 39th ordinary session of the AU in Addis Ababa, the African heads of states themselves said that we need to have a sense of urgency and we need to focus on getting results. So the point is that this conference or this forum that we are organizing should be able to send this clear signal that manufacturers are ready, regulators are ready, the likes of the National Vaccine Institute are ready, and we need to be able to free the resources for the manufacturers to do what they have to do.
The local manufacturing coordinator of the Africa CDC, Dr. Giteno Abebe, highlighted full political support, fragmented demand and unpredictable offtake, limited industrial policies to support health budgets on prioritizing local manufacturers, limited visibility and intelligence of specific products, and structural competitiveness gaps are some of the challenges that needs urgent attention.
The Canadian Welding Bureau, in collaboration with the Regional Maritime University, RMU, and Corporate Professional Industrial Training, CPI, has signed a Memorandum of Understanding to formalize a partnership aimed at transforming technical education and improving employment pathways in Ghana. The signing ceremony, which brought together key stakeholders from academia and industry, marked a significant step toward bridging the long-standing gap between classroom learning and real-world industry demands. In his remarks, the Vice-Chancellor of RMU, Jethro Brooks Jr., commended CPI for its continued support. He explained that the partnership focuses on national capacity building through stronger collaboration between academic institutions and industry-driven training programs.
Formal education is very important, but skills development should be a priority in terms of construction and development. Because sometimes when you look around, not every welder is just a welder. You see, I'm looking for a welder, man say, okay, I can weld. But when you talk about professional welding, that is what we want to emphasize, and that is what we want to push. It is hope and pray that after the signing of this agreement between the three institutions, we see new development.
Speaking at the event, the president of CPI, Terry Drabu, emphasized the critical role of technical education in national development. He noted that the agreement expands the collaboration into a tripartite arrangement, strengthening training opportunities and introducing more specialized programs.
Technical trades training is not cheap, it's expensive. So it's our job, we believe, to bring education to the table. The other thing in the model is infrastructure, and that includes labs and equipment. Well, we discovered, like here at RMU, that the labs are here. We have the infrastructures in place. And so that was one of the check marks that we checked off the list.
National Coordinator of the National Apprenticeship Program, Nicodemus Derry, stated that the initiative is designed to tackle youth unemployment by equipping young Ghanaians aged 15 to 40 with practical, industry-relevant skills. He added that the collaboration with CPI and RMU is a critical step toward improving certification standards and increasing participation, with a long-term target of training 500,000 individuals within 4 years.
And so we have a target of 500,000 in 4 years. The first phase of which we started last year, we targeted 10,000. We are currently doing 14,335. And we have collaborations already with CPI for standardizations, for certifications. And of course, welding and fabrication is a key area that is high priority.
With the agreement now in place, the partners expressed optimism that the collaboration will lead to enhanced training, improved employability for graduates, and the development of a stronger technical workforce to support Ghana's growth. The director of Tema Port, Tebon Zuma Esquire, has called on managers and staff to remain committed to protecting the interests of Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority-GPHA at all times. He commended both management and staff for their dedication and hard work in 2025, which contributed to notable operational success. He further encouraged them to sustain the momentum in 2026 by consolidating these gains and delivering efficient, client-focused services. Tebon Zuma expressed his appreciation for their role in ensuring the smooth and efficient running of the port. Highlighting key operational achievements, he noted that the transfer of containers from MPS Terminal 3 to other terminals has been seamless, with no backlog recorded. He also indicated that management has made significant investments in critical equipment to enhance operational efficiency.
We celebrate today because we're able to do a lot to serve our customers better, and we hope that in the coming years, 2026 in particular, we'll be able to do better than we did in 2025. This is just to appreciate all the managers in the port and to let them know that we are in this thing together, and once they have worked so hard to achieve the success, it's appropriate that we recognize them.
Touching on government policy, Tebon Zuma stated that the port is fully aligned with the 24-hour economy initiative, with round-the-clock operations now in place to enable importers to clear their goods at their convenience.
No, it's to work hard and to make sure that the interest of GPHA is protected at all times. We engage a lot of casual labor, and because of the 24-hour economy or system, we are able to bring more of the casual labor. So it is the duty of the managers to make sure that they work and stay on the job and work very hard to achieve the objectives of the port, bring efficiency into the port. Yes. So I want to also take this opportunity to wish all the management and staff a happy Heritage Month.
The Port of Tema is set to host an automobile and habitat fair aimed at supporting staff and the wider port community in acquiring homes and vehicles. The four-day event, which commences from Monday 30th March to Thursday 2nd April 2026, is designed to provide a platform for participants to explore a range of automobile and housing options while also gaining practical insights into home ownership and development planning. Speaking in an interview, the Marketing and Public Affairs Manager of the Port of Tema, Abna Sewa Opokufosu, encouraged staff and members of the port community to take full advantage of the fair.
The Habitat and Auto Fair is the first of its kind that we are having. We want to give our staff, especially, and stakeholders access to the essential life assets like housing, like vehicles. And then we also want to encourage structured savings and access to mortgage uptakes and responsible asset acquisition.
She noted that the initiative presents a unique opportunity for individuals to make informed decisions toward owning personal vehicles and building or purchasing homes.
Having a place to stay is an essential life commodity or need. And so we are hoping that at the end of the day, we will have a lot of people getting access, even if it's just the education, to know that these things are available when you are ready. And of course, we have been able to secure discounts also from all these vendors. And we are looking forward to a very exciting and mutually beneficial time for the authority, the staff, and all the other vendors that are coming on board.
Beyond product exhibitions, the fair will also feature educational sessions focused on guiding participants through the process of home construction and long-term housing investments. The event is sponsored by Zonda Tech Ghana Limited and Indigo Homes.
The Women's International Shipping and Trading Association, West Ghana, in collaboration with Mexline, has donated essential items to the St. Nicholas Charity Foundation Ghana in Tema, Newtown, to support child education. The donation made on Friday, March 13, 2026, included toiletries, detergents, stationery, sanitary pads, bottled water, drinks, bags of rice, cooking oil, tomato paste, jerseys, and tissues. Speaking at the event, the director of the foundation, Deborah Eliza, emphasized her deep passion for child education. She noted that establishing and sustaining the school remains her core mandate, with a strong commitment to seeing the children excel in their career path.
We are doing our best to support and help it. So our role is not the most important. The most important role is the children, the education that they're receiving. I cannot begin to express how happy I am that we have received these donations, but more importantly, that you felt like giving it to our school. It is a further endorsement of the support that we get from the Ghanaian community, and particularly the shipping community.
The president of Western Ghana, Gertrude Adjoa-Ohene Esienim, explained that the gestures forms part of efforts to promote the well-being, diversity and inclusion of young people while supporting their development. She added that timely interventions play a crucial role in achieving better outcomes.
One of the aims will be to sensitize them about what they can become in the maritime future. So we'll keep on with giving them sensitizations about jobs that they can take in the maritime. They can become captains, they can become logisticians, port agents, shipbrokers, maritime consultants, maritime lawyers, and many other professions that we have. So it will be an ongoing exercise for them to come to terms with the benefits of being by the sea and what they can gain from it.
Also speaking at the event, Head of Customs Compliance at MEX Ghana Limited, Gertrude Akume, stated that the collaboration with Western Ghana aligns with efforts to support the foundation in achieving its goals.
We want to also give our support to say that we want to encourage them to become what they want to be in future, to achieve what they want to achieve, and especially to come into the maritime space.
Western Ghana, formed in June 2009, aims to promote the development of women within the maritime sector.
So those were some updates for you at the port and the maritime industry. Remember, my name is Aisha Ibrahim, and I'm interested in the conversation we're having today because the potential closure of the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most critical shipping routes, it poses a significant threat to global trade, energy security, and supply chains. Roughly a fifth of global oil and a substantial share of liquefied petroleum, natural gas pass through this narrow corridor daily. Any disruption, you would agree with me, will trigger immediate spikes in freight costs, insurance premiums, and commodity prices, with ripple effects across continents. Now, for shipping-dependent economies like Ghana, the consequences could include higher import costs, delays in cargo delivery, and increased pressure on inflation and currency stability. Now, the situation would also test the resilience of global logistics networks, forcing shipping lines to reroute their vessels, adjust schedules, and actually absorb high operational risk. Our focus this evening is to explore the broader implications for international shipping, the preparedness of Ghana's maritime and trade institutions, and also the strategies needed to mitigate risk in an increasingly volatile global trade environment. And to do that with me, I'm so excited because I have two experienced hands who are joining me for this discussion. First, in the studio with me is Mr. Fred Esiedu, who is the head of freight and logistics at the Ghana Shippers Authority. Grateful that you were able to join me in the studio.
Thank you.
And also joining us virtually is Captain Francis Kwesi Micah, who is a maritime consultant. Captain, thank you so much for joining us. Right. So I'll just start with you, Mr. Esiedu, and find out what's so critical about this Strait of Hormuz, and what happens if the route is disrupted?
All right, thank you very much, Aisha. It's a pleasure to be here. This is new to all of us, but the Strait of Hormuz is a waterway connecting the Persian Gulf and the general Indian Ocean. And it's a very, very important corridor. Its importance is derived from the traffic that goes through that space. For instance, just as you indicated in the intro, that space alone takes about between 20 to 30% of world seaborne oil supplies. And on a daily, you have about 20 million barrels of oil going through that strait.
Wow.
So it's a very important corridor. In fact, some people have described this as a pressure valve for the global energy system, so that any time that valve is closed,
there's going to be chaos.
There's chaos everywhere around the globe. And so that's how important it is. Now, its closure is going to bring very serious challenges. And of course, even within the short space of time that there's been disruptions in that space, I'm sure you've already seen that vessel movements has become a challenge. My last check, there are hundreds of vessels that are stranded in the space. Freight rates have gone up significantly because you would find out, for instance, that shipping lines have decided to introduce surcharges, because of the disruption that is coming to the space. Now, insurance entities that provide insurance both for cargo and then for the hull of the vessel, that is, you would find out that a number of them have decided either to, increase the insurance cover or to deny cover insofar as you're using the Strait or you are within that environment. And so it's new to all of us, and it doesn't portend good for us. As all of what is happening will bring some significant discomfort, in the trading system.
In terms of short and long-term impacts, and I want to bring in Captain Micah here, in terms of long and short-term and long-term impact, what are we looking at?
And sorry for the hiccup early on. I think we had some technical hitch. And thanks for having me. To address this issue, allow me to place in context where all this brouhaha is happening, the location of that particular strait. In the Arabian Peninsula, we have the northern section of it having the Persian Gulf that runs through this critical Strait of Hormuz that ends up in the Gulf of Oman before entering the Arabian Sea. Now, for the short-term impact, definitely, it will mean that once we have about 80% of Iran's oil that goes to, say, China, as my colleague indicated, 20% of the world oil and energy, and I'm talking about LNG and then crude oil, running through the Strait of Hormuz. Immediately, it put in disarray the price indexes. Now, all over the world, if we have 20% being limited in terms of outflow, in terms of it getting to the market, definitely the hiccups become so many. The oil that runs through this particular Strait of Hormuz is mainly serving some top Asian countries. And when I say top Asian countries, we are talking about industrial giants like Japan, South Korea, India, and the larger continent. And therefore, it means that their source of energy to produce a lot of produce, will definitely affect the volumes that get churned out. The direct impact, I will say, is to do with the cost of petroleum products. Now, whatever the percentage that goes on to the other places, we will say might be insignificant, but the totality of it all is that the Brent crude oil prices affect, and then we in West Africa, purchasing our stuff, especially the petroleum products from, say, Rotterdam or the Netherlands, definitely will suffer the consequences if there aren't resilient measures in place to shore up these challenges.
Right, Captain Micah, you've really put issues in perspective for us. I would like to do a comparison of past crises that we have. I mean, for instance, in 2021, with the Suez Canal blockage, I would like us to do a comparison. But before I do that, Mr. Siedu, how would this rising energy cost, as he indicated, affect shipping rates and overall cost of goods, as we're discussing?
All right. I think Captain will confirm what I'm going to say, that when you look at vessel operations, about 30 to 60%, depending on which vessel you're using, you know, 30 to 60% of their operational cost is related to bunker, the fuel that is used. Okay?
Yeah.
And so, with all of what is going on, if fuel prices suddenly shoot up, then obviously the cost of operations for vessels would go up.
Okay.
And remember that freight is the amount of money that is paid for the carriage of cargo from one location to the other. And so if the cost of operation for that voyage suddenly shoots up, then obviously the vessel operators will seek to recover their cost. And in just over the short period of time that this has happened, a number of vessel operators have indicated to the market that they are going to be increasing or they are introducing surcharges. We have had occasion to put out some notice to the shipping public.
Yes, which
because
we'll be
some
looking
major
at.
shipping lines have indicated that
Okay.
they are increasing or they are introducing a surcharge of between $1,000 and $4,000
Wow.
per TEU.
Wow.
Yes. And so that is significant. And quite obviously, once that is padded on in terms of the freight that the cargo receiver has to pay, it trickles down to, because obviously they
All
are not Father
levels.
Christmas.
Everybody will have their
yeah,
share of it.
everybody would have their share along the route.
The chain.
So the chain, yes.
Wow. That's that's not a joke, actually. But just like I said, I wanted us to do a comparison with the
Yes.
Suez Canal blockade,
Yes.
which happened in 2021,
Yes.
and the disruption we're having right now.
Yeah.
I mean, let's weigh the two and see if
Okay.
we're looking at even a more critical issues to deal with than what we had in the past.
Okay, so I'll give you some background. Okay, so in 2021, we had the Suez Canal blockade, and that was caused by a vessel named the Ever Given. Okay, so the Suez Canal is a major channel where vessels routing from the Far East are able to reach Europe on a shorter route, and then the rivers.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when this happened, vessels were blocked, and over that short period of time, goods worth about 9.6 billion were delayed. But the good thing about that experience was that it was an operational error. It was something that had happened.
Okay.
So immediately resources were pulled together. You had, and then
It
over a period
wasn't
of
an
6
ongoing-
weeks, over a period of 6 days,
Okay.
the vessel was pulled away. The channel was opened for
For
trade
free
to go.
flow of
Yes.
vessels.
So it had a finite duration.
Yeah.
Even though it was unexpected and it rippled
Yeah.
across the industry, over a short period of time,
It was
we
dealt
found a
with.
solution.
Yeah.
Now, what we are dealing with today, is unexpected.
Yeah.
It's a geopolitical conflict.
Definitely.
It's
so.
one that nobody can predict the end.
The end.
Because as you listen to the news every now and again, and in one breath, one party says, we've done significant damage, there's going to be a call for a truce, and, we're going to suspend this. In another breath, you hear that, okay, the way things are going, we're going to be going for the next 2 weeks or so.
Yeah.
So everybody, depending on which perspective
They're looking at
they are
things
looking
from.
at things from, they are projecting the end. But it does appear that as we get closer to those projections, something new happens. Because in this particular instance, with the information that was available, it was as if, all right, significant damage had been done to the Iranian side, so they had lost capacity to actually take hold of the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that is not the reality on the ground.
On the ground.
Because as we speak, there is some closure. And my last readings were hearing that vessels that were allowed to pass had to pay $2 million per vessel to pass. I mean, so there's some indication of control over the space.
Yeah.
Now, we are just hearing again recently, and again, these are unconfirmed reports, that the Iranian-backed Houthis have hit Israel and are looking at hitting the Suez Canal again.
That's going to cause more
and
problems for us.
That is, well, let's all pray that it doesn't happen.
Because that will just be the end of the road.
It will compound the situation.
Goodness
and
me.
it will be very serious.
So to me, it does just look like the end is not near. Captain Micah, it looks like the end is not near. But if I still want to just suppose the 2021 issue with what we're facing now, Mr. Asiedu explains that was just a short period, but this looks like it's going to be longer than we all even expect. Are there lessons from what we've had in the past that we can use in what we're facing right now in terms of looking for solutions?
Yeah, so again, like my colleague indicated, the case that happened in the Suez Canal was more to do with a vessel getting grounded. It was a navigational error that resulted in that blockade. So it had a solution, and there was some kind of finite measure that had to be put in place. Now, when you look at what is happening now,
okay,
2,500 commercial ships currently stuck in the Persian Gulf. We have about 20,000 seafarers also stuck in there, and the repercussions are huge. Now, it's good, Mr. Dati talked about the Houthis. The Houthis coming into this context makes it even much more grave, in the sense that they control the Bab al-Mandeb that connects the Gulf of Aden to the Red Sea before they transit the Suez Canal. So it means that once they start those attacks, as they intend to do, in fact, I just read some article which indicated that the European naval forces have come out with an advisory alerting shipowners about the potential consequence of the Bab al-Mandeb also getting affected. Again, Bab al-Mandeb is also a limited water strait, or a strait that limits control from passage from the Gulf of Aden to the larger Red Sea. Now, the volumes that go in there are very limited compared with what runs through the Persian Gulf. So it cannot actually be compared, the state of affairs or the repercussions that we face because of what happened in 2021, referencing the grounding of the vessel that eventually was made free and transiting resumed. As to this, where we are not able to get a timeline. So the issue here now is the timeline. Now, if this situation exacerbates, it means that prices are really going to be ruined. Like I indicated earlier on, it affects all over. And the fact that the refineries or the production lines that have been hit by missiles, drones, etc., even assuming that the war ends, the hostilities end today, we're still going to have issues about the number of years or months that will require to put or to restore the volumes of production. And therefore, it will mean that we are going to be in this long haul for some time. So that is a good comparison for the activities that happened in the Suez as compared to what is happening in,
as to what we are facing right now. So, Mr. Asiedu,
exactly.
I'm just looking at some of the challenges that the shipping lines will be facing? What, in terms of challenges, what are some of the things that these shipping lines should look out for? Earlier, you spoke about the fact that some would have to reroute, and then I'm looking at some delays and all of that.
Yes. So rerouting is an option, but you know that depending on the voyage they are on, it is not as easy. It's not as though you have alternative, issues in terms of where you're, rerouting to. There are also the issues about delays that we have talked about. Captain alluded to the fact that we have about 2,500, vessels that are, stranded. So this is also a challenge. And I mentioned earlier that insurance premiums and things are also a challenge for them at this point, because a number of the insurance companies are either multiplying the cover for the risks, war risks, or that they are withdrawing or suspending these war risks in totality. And so you would find out that a number of the shipping lines are in some distress right now. Now, what is their response? What is their reaction? Because it's not so much what they take on, but how does that reflect on the market? So you would have some of the shipping lines have indicated. I mentioned earlier, the introduction of some surcharges that they are introducing. Only recently, we got information that another shipping line has introduced what they call the equipment imbalance surcharge, and introduced it here, next door in Côte d'Ivoire, and that was to take effect from the 1st of March, 2026. So there are multiple actions going on, perhaps we'll come to the response later. Okay. But these are the issues that are coming up, and it makes the entire space a bit murky at this point. What is important, though, is that we are advising that we all need to stay calm and monitor the system. Because when it happens like this, you realize everybody wants to cash in, everybody wants to take advantage of the situation. Yeah. We have had instances where complaints have come to the Ghana Shippers Authority, for instance, that some shipments, after the introduction of the surcharges by some lines, some shipments that were done way before the escalation of the hostilities and the disruption in the space, were also kind of slapped with those
like a retrospective action.
Exactly.
That's interesting.
So when it came to the attention of the Ghana Shippers Authority, we took steps to, review the issues and made some approaches to the named shipping line, and thankfully, they saw reason and they promised to make the necessary refunds and to ensure. So we all need to monitor at this point, just so that, yes, we are in a situation nobody is happy about, but I'm sure that with a little vigilance, we can ensure that there's some level of fairness in the system, and so nobody gets completely taking advantage of.
Okay. So this 2 million surcharge that you're talking about, what was the impact on importers?
Oh, so obviously, if you're bringing in cargo, okay, let's assume you're bringing in cargo from a port close by, so you can talk about Jebel Ali, you can talk about some of those other ports nearby, and you're bringing in goods, and then you are told that there is this surcharge that is applicable. Then obviously, if you are paying, say, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for your freight, it means you are going to be paying that plus another $3,000 or $4,000 because of this additional cost that has come up. So it means the cost of landed imports significantly shoots up. Yes. And at the current levels, it's not that frightening. But with all of the other additional things coming up, there is a fear that we may go up. In fact, when we had COVID and we had all these challenges coming up, people were paying close to 13,000, 15,000 US dollars for boxes from the Far East to Ghana.
That was a big one.
Yeah. You know, so we all need to kind of be alert
and look forward to what is coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is not funny at all.
It will be like a bullet that hits you unawares.
Yeah. So I know that you've issued an advisory to shipping lines.
Yes.
You've given pointer by pointer as to how they should manage themselves throughout this period. I just want you to share that with all of us.
Okay. So the advisory that we issued, we tried to give a background of the developments and then the implications. We also indicated the surcharges that had been introduced by a number of the shipping lines and the possibility that even bookings may be cancelled and all of that. But straight to the point, what we had said to shippers is that all shippers need to engage proactively with their shipping lines. You want to, as much as possible, understand what your obligations are under the contract of carriage, what you're entering into. So that helps you to know what surcharges apply on the specific routes, you know, so it gets you to know what to do. And then also, because of the significant delays, unexpected delays that is happening, you want to build those delays into your plan. Okay, so if you're planning to bring goods to meet a particular season, it's advisable to ensure that you build some lay period within that space to ensure that you are not overtaken by events. Then also we have advised that shippers should endeavor to take the necessary insurance cover for their cargo, because with all of what is happening, if you're investing, you know, significant amounts in products, imports that you are bringing in, or even exports to those spaces, and you haven't significantly covered your risk, then you stand a chance of losing everything should there be a harm. Because at the end of the day, if you leave it just to the contract of carriage you have with the shipping line, there's limitation of liability. And those ones won't serve you as much. So those are the key things we are telling shippers, and also assuring them that we have a complaint mechanism. And so if you receive an invoice from any of your service providers and you are not very comfortable, you approach the Ghana Shippers Authority. We have experts who are there who look at the details of the documentation and advice on what to do.
Captain Micah, I'm wondering what will change in terms of insurance premiums and risk assessment in this scenario.
Definitely, we're talking about P&I clubs that they've also adjusted, you know, on the higher credentials to increase it. P&I clubs, actually a group of ship owners, decide to take care of themselves in terms of liabilities that they might run through if they are not covered by the regular insurance firms, because mainly the insurance firms take care of the hull and the engine. So it is protection and indemnity, and the prices have also shot up. Now, with all these charges, it will be expected that definitely ship owners are going to bear the brunt. My colleague talked about the passage. Now, if you have the regular time that runs through the Suez, and now vessels will now have to run through the Cape of Good Hope, that is around the South Africa, it will mean definitely more bunkers, more claims, more wages.
You would have to reposition. I think you're going off the screen. Good. So it's better right now.
Yeah. Okay, good. So that is how it works out. Importantly, we have some other links when you're talking about shipping conferences. For the Gulf area, we have very top-notch ports that serve the Middle East West African shipping service. We have the Far East to the Middle East. Now, with this crunch, what it means is that flow of goods and services definitely is getting affected. And therefore, we'll definitely need to stock up very well and do our supply chain management effectively to forestall delays in the ships coming to an end. But one thing I want to touch on, madam, is the issue of the other effects apart from the energy. You know, we are concentrating so much on which of course is the bedrock of all the challenges of the crude oil and the natural gas, LNG. But the hub that is currently afire, for lack of a better expression, is also a hub for a lot of top-notch industries. Fertilizer becomes an issue. Fertilizer and then agriculture definitely gets affected. If the fertilizer production curtails, we are not able to get them to our areas all over the world. It means for areas in West Africa, bringing it home, where we are so much dependent on fertilizer to bring our produce to the needed requirement, we have challenges. Pharmaceutical industry also coming. Now, so therefore, stock market, banking, investment schedules, everything goes awry, and then eventually the situation becomes much more destabilized. When we are talking about all these things, we must be very cognizant of the fact that these shipping routes need to be diversified. So if you have a client who is dependent on a particular route, the advice, therefore, based on these challenges, with reference to even what happened to 2021, where people were having challenges, is to diversify our sources.
Captain,
so
can you kindly, sorry to cut you, Captain, if you can take your hands off the camera so we can see you properly. It looks like your hand is covering your camera so that we can see you.
Yeah, there we are, okay.
Okay, so please, you can go on.
Okay, yeah. So that is what I was referring to, so that we can have the effectiveness of the flow of the supply chain uninterrupted. We have to diversify with our sources. Other than that, diversification comes in to prevent the challenges of the similar routes, so that bunkering hubs, restocking hubs, and all those things will come in to ameliorate the challenges that we currently face.
Captain, talking about similar routes, I just want to find out if there's a viable alternative route, I mean, compared to the Strait of Hormuz, and how effective, if there is one.
No, in fact, what is happening, in fact, for the vessels, for the countries that are affected, it is only, I think, Saudi Arabia that is able to get some fuel or some crude oil through the Red Sea, because they have an east-west pipeline that runs from the eastern end of the country to the western end to serve the discharge port in the Red Sea. But unfortunately, the volumes are not many. And that is how come we are challenged with this particular issue, because the volumes of all these countries, Oman, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, and then Iran and Iraq itself, all the volumes definitely will have. There's no alternative. The alternative are through pipelines, but they are not able to carry the expected volumes as the market will so much desire.
So Captain puts it there, and I think you also raised it earlier, that once it affects shipping lines, shipping costs, then it transcends to all other areas. And exactly what he's saying, that it could affect agriculture and all other things. I want us to focus more on Ghana and on the import-dependent sectors. What risk does this pose?
All right, so I'll come to that part, but just to add to what Captain rightly said.
Okay.
You don't have ready alternatives. You know, even for Saudi Arabia, the alternative of the pipeline that he talked about, the pipeline, the capacity is 5 million barrels per day.
Okay.
But, you know, going through the Strait, you have 20 million
Okay,
you know,
compared
barrels
to
per
this,
day. So,
yeah,
I mean,
limited.
they are,
So it's I mean, you can't
you
compare
can't put
the
them
two.
together on the same scale. Now, back to the issue about how that, you know, applies to us in Ghana. Obviously, there are specific risks that we face as a country. First, because we are an import-dependent country. I mean, and that is one fact we can't run away from, you know. So that profile which we have makes us very, very much exposed to disruptions in global trade. As we speak, statistics from the Ghana Shippers Authority point to the fact that 45.7% of the imports we bring into the country, you know, are from the Far East. And these include, you know, rice, wheat flour, frozen poultry, refined fuel products, industrial goods. You are talking about machinery, vehicles, equipment, spare parts, you know, pharmaceuticals, and Captain alluded to all of these things. Yes. And these are the clear things that, you know, we are depending on from that region. And so obviously if there's a disruption, then we're going to have to bear the brunt. He also mentioned the issue of diversification as a way of mitigating the risk. I think that is very, very important. You know, that is very important because we need to ensure that at every point in time, we have 2 or 3 sources for the same product.
Yeah.
The prices may vary, the quality may vary, but at least it gives you options. But the current situation we have, it does appear that, you know, once we establish a relationship and it's working, that is a route that we use. And over time, there's been clear dependence on these major routes. And so in this instances, we are in a very difficult shape. This also then brings me to another measure we need to put in place to kind of mitigate this overdependence. You know, I recall when the issues occurred in 2001 from the Suez Canal issues, and then we're having a similar discussion. You know, then we said we think that we should give some serious attention to AFTA, the African Continental Free Trade Area. You know, to ensure that we are sourcing material from, if not internally as Ghana, you know, close by, or from our neighbors, where it becomes easy, you know, to reach out to when you don't have to.
You are in need,
in need. But it doesn't look like we have had, you know, the proper policy framework to actualize this vision, you know. And so that is a challenge, and I think is something we need to look at. Because if you have alternatives nearby, you never know. In a rainy day, you may want to go next door. You may want to touch base with somebody. Right? Exactly. Instead of, you know, fully. And then perhaps all of this should kind of bring up the discussion of focusing on internal, you know, sourcing of material, locally produced rice, for instance. So we can begin to change our appetite and our taste for foreign rice and eat local rice. Because these are the ways we'll be able to survive these kinds of things. Because with the way things are going, if we don't see an end in the next few weeks to the next month or so, prices are going to go way up.
But the big question is has to do with supply and demand. Do we have what it takes if we want to diversify? I mean, depend on locally produced. You're talking about poultry. We're talking about rice. Do we have what it takes to feed the people who need all of that?
I believe if we are deliberate about it, we'll do it. There is nothing beyond our ability to take care of ourselves. You know, there are a number of government programs, and I'll just mention one. This idea of even that this current government has introduced.
Yes.
You know, if everybody was to give it attention, and you know, can you imagine the volumes that we are going to provide? Would that then change or shift the current dynamic, so we don't have to import frozen chicken from elsewhere? You know, can we look at rice production? And there's been a lot of talk. I know some media houses have been advocating for this and are championing this, but you know, it's like it's a seasonal act. So we do it up to some time, we get tired. But if there's a deliberate policy and there's a deliberate push and there's leadership in these spaces, I am very certain that we'll begin to change, and we don't have to change the world in one day. Little by little, things will begin to change. And then we'll move along that path and then depart from the overdependence on some. I understand there are a number of things that, of course, we may not have the capacity to, like vehicles, equipment, you know, for all, but there are a number of other things that when COVID hit, you know, that was where I saw the ingenuity of the Ghanaian.
Okay.
Because even PPEs we didn't have.
Yeah.
And so people then, there was encouragement, people started face masks, we're using Ghanaian face masks, you know, and some of us tried to get something that would match with your
clothes.
and all of that. It was quite interesting the way it developed. But again, immediately COVID left us. What have we done?
The typical Ghanaian.
You know, and I think these are all things that must prompt a certain drive inside of us to begin to look inward for the solutions, you know, that we need to get out of the quagmire.
How prepared is the Ghana Shippers Authority to face this global shock?
Well, okay, so from our side, there are many fronts in which we can fully impact the system. Number one is we need to make sure that importers and exporters are fully aware of what it is that is going on. And then we are keeping close contact with them and advising them in terms of the mitigating measures they need to put in place. We are also putting in place systems to engage. You know, currently the new act that we have says we should regulate the commercial shipping industry. So we don't only represent the interest of importers and exporters. We also represent the interest of shipping service providers, terminals, shipping agencies, shipping lines, freight forwarders, hauliers, and even on the aviation side, ground handlers and all of those other service providers within the shipping space. And so we are equally involved in ensuring that there is connectivity, there is stakeholder engagement as far as the shipping lines are concerned, so that we have discussions on what's going on, what actions they are taking, and whether those actions, are fitting for the space. Because again, as I indicated, we are keeping a close account with all the service providers and ensuring that to a large extent, we all are in this together and we are rolling out solutions that don't excessively overburden one side of the market than the other.
Let's bring in Captain. Captain, Mr. Siedu Date has spoken about the directive that the Shipping Authority has given to importers. What contingency measures do you recommend for importers and exporters, in this, to actually mitigate these disruptions?
Yes, thank you. I will want to single up our petroleum products, which becomes a really determining step in the lines of production in so many areas.
We might have heard,
yes, we might.
We've started
We
feeling
might have
it
had
because it's becoming expensive at the pumps.
exactly. Even in US, which has strategic reserves, rolling them out, it's gone to $4. It's ascending to $5. My simple question is, do we have the intent of plan to put up strategic reserves when it comes to our petroleum? Or we still want to continue with buying and selling, or for a better word, import and distribute? If you realize that top-notch country decided to roll out a lot from their strategic reserve, even that was not enough to curtail the shock of what has happened in the Gulf. So for me, I was just monitoring the news few hours or a few minutes before we started the program, and I was listening to Aliko Dangote himself, who is saying that with his huge refinery, in fact, it is all sold out, and was virtually appealing to the government to ensure that a lot of the crude comes to his facility to be able to sell, because it is not only African countries that are benefiting from the refinery, especially Ghana, but all other countries, and that will even bring some price, shocks to the system. So for me, I would just want to zone in on strategic reserves in terms of our petroleum industry. If we're able to do that and we're able to control the prices, it means that we would be a bit relieved from the shocks. In fact, even if you have a resilient economy, the shocks coming from petroleum affairs is always there to destabilize all the goods that you might have piled up. I was listening to another network where they talked about in Asia, where they are really feeling the brunt, and that can be compared to what possibly we might face. What they decided to do was to take out the tax element. Now, when you take out the tax element, you are in for another shock, because it cascades down the line. It means that your revenue that you need to take care of hospitals, schools, and other requirements will also be challenged. So for me, apart from the diversification that we need to work on in terms of getting different shipping routes, and for that matter, also getting areas where we procure our product, and then also making sure that we adjust our taste buds, our lifestyle, so many things. It is the fuel. If you have enough fuel, doomsday will not be affected. If you have enough fuel, prices of commodities because of transport fares will not be affected. So for me, that is my MasterCard.
Right. So if you just joined us, we're looking at the potential closure of the Strait of Hormuz, which could affect or prevent a huge number of ships from sailing through. And you know what that means. It will affect supply chain, it will affect trade, and it will affect the entire shipping industry. When I return from this break, we'll be looking at the role that regional bodies like ECOWAS play in cushioning member states in terms of this disruption. We'll also look at the policy interventions that we could adopt in terms of the supply chain. Stay with me, I'm coming right back, because you would also have your share to make your comments, suggestions, and contribute to this discussion. Please stay with me.
Good energy brings you quality choices with Goil Super XP. Available in many Goil stations nationwide. It is fortified with special additives that help your engine perform better and use less fuel. Branch into a Goil station today and energize your ride with Goil Super XP, compatible with most vehicles. Goil Super XP, Wufilia, huh? Wubefi. Goil, good energy. Ja, dia.
Electricity, then pay your taxes. Yeah. Our taxes, our future.
Because you see, without our taxes, we wouldn't have good roads, good schools, better hospitals, street lights, and other very important social amenities. When we pay our taxes, we give our children free and quality education. Talga, my money too small. Why should I pay my tax? Look, small. Salifo, it doesn't matter how small or big your business or income is. You still have to pay your taxes. The little taxes from each and every one of us, when put together, could give your community clean water. Or that deprived school with tables and chairs. Please pay your taxes. It is your responsibility. It is your civic duty. It is the law.
Welcome to today's edition of Serene Insurance Business News. We present to you Serena. You're right. You can complete an entire insurance process for the purchase of any motor and other insurance products, from onboarding to issuing a motor insurance sticker and policy certificate, all on WhatsApp in less than 10 minutes. Serena is simple to use and it prioritizes user ease and flexibility. You can either use voice notes or text to effortlessly issue your instant policy, cross-platform renewals, claims, and also process your payments through mobile money, Visa, and MasterCard. To engage Serena, just search for Serena Insurance on all social media handles and scan the Serena barcode or save her number 0500 517 114 and start chatting her on WhatsApp immediately. There you have it. Serena is not just a tool, it's an innovation by Serene Insurance designed to redefine how motor and travel insurance are accessed and managed. Speed, convenience, and reliability.
MPS Terminal 3 is Africa's new state-of-the-art container terminal at Tema Port. For manufacturers, agro-processors and traders, the new port means business can be done faster. This infrastructure boost will improve Ghana's port handling capacity, connect more trading routes, and oil the engine of growth for the economy, creating greater opportunities across all sectors as Africa's markets merge and become the largest trading bloc globally. MPS, we connect, you thrive.
At Phoenix Insurance, we make the unpredictable predictable and the uncertain certain with our range of products, including motor insurance, fire insurance, engineering insurance, marine insurance, accident insurances, and all types of bonds. We have you covered. We also support you with risk management advice to enable you stay focused on your business. Take a policy with Phoenix Insurance today. We help you rise from adversity stronger and more secure. Contact us on 0302 246319 or 0302 246644 or any of our branches, agencies, and brokers spread across the nation. You can as well connect with us on our WhatsApp chatbot. Efiba is waiting to assist you. Make the future predictable with Phoenix Insurance. Phoenix Insurance, a delightful service experience delivered with wisdom.
Welcome back to Iron Port. Remember, Iron Port is powered by the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority-GPHA. So before I left, I told you that we'll be looking at the role of regional bodies in all of this. But of course, we're looking at the disruptions at the Strait of Hormuz, where a huge number of vessels pass through, and you know how much that is for Ghana. It means that if they are not coming, then there will be a huge loss in terms of revenue. And my two experienced hands have been highlighting on that, and we're looking at how we can resolve this. So, Mr. Seidu, what role do regional bodies, what role do they play in this critical moment?
All right, so thank you very much. I think it is very important. Before you go on to indicate what role regional bodies like ECOWAS would play in this. And indeed, someone would ask, do they have a role? Yes, they do have a role. They do have a role because, they sit at a privileged position and have the ability to influence policy and influence decisions across the region. As we speak, trade within Africa is about 15%, intra-African trade. The same is not said about Europe. You know, intra-European trade is around 60%. And when you go to the Asian region, it's about 40%. So they're doing something that perhaps we are still not getting right.
Okay.
And I think that it is important in all of this for regional bodies to perhaps start at harmonizing the regulatory environment.
Okay.
And ensuring that, you know, within the sub-region, trade is, you know, facilitated, you know. So there are standards that apply across the region. It makes trade easy across borders. And then you can, so all of this, we have talked about the disruptions. We have talked about our dependence on external sources. But what can our regional bodies do to enhance the internal alternatives that we have? I tell you frankly, trading across borders within our African region is difficult. You know, on an annual basis, in fact, on a quarterly basis, the Ghana Shippers Authority, you know, sends out officers on our trade corridors to try and find out firsthand what challenges exist along the corridors. And you will be amazed, you know, at some of the findings that, you know, at cross-border requirements for documentation to be able to cross over, the implementation of the ETLS and the challenges it's having at the borders and all. It's amazing. And I think that our regional bodies and regional institutions should begin to look at setting the regulatory framework right. You know, then institutions in the various countries would be empowered to enforce those standards. And then our traders, very vulnerable traders, you know, can begin to, you know, flourish as they make the attempts to trade across borders. Only recently, you know, and again, this is another matter, but you know what happened to our tomatoes.
Exactly.
Traders who had gone in there and the challenges that are there. I know that's an isolated situation.
Yes.
But again, akin to that, you have other challenges, you know, with vulnerable traders who seek just to make a living and to make everybody's life comfortable. You know, move across borders and try to do.
And this is with our own neighboring countries.
Our own neighboring space. So it may not be the closure of the Strait in Hormuz, but, you know, there are little impediments that I think would be important to address. Then I would also add that we should also, as regional bodies, look at investment in other, you know, logistics that facilitate trade. Believe you me, if you want to move cargo from here to Sierra Leone, for instance, it's a difficulty. You might have to get the goods on board a certain vessel. It goes all the way to either Morocco or even to any of the European ports before it can come back to Ghana. So we must have, you know, those investments into those vessels. There was this project about the Sea Link project to try and create some vessel or bring up vessels that would do, you know, carriage of goods across the various coastal countries, Liberia, you know, Abidjan and things, you know. But, well, again, every time the effort comes up, it fizzles out. And I think that those are very important things that our leaders should be focusing on. If the infrastructure is in place, I am sure that, you know, everything else would follow.
And of course, I'm getting messages here. This is from Dan from Mamprobi, and he's actually alluding to your fact. He says, kindly ask your guests that shouldn't the international events be a wake-up call for Africans to take the AfTA seriously, which I think you've already mentioned. And this one says, thanks, Iron Port, for this educative program. Your guests are doing justice to the topic. I wanted to put the WhatsApp number on the line, but I'm just looking at the time. I don't think we would have even enough time yes. I wouldn't have, but the number is 025-834-980. Maybe we can pick one or two messages before we leave. Captain Micah, we're talking about regional bodies. Yes. Anything you want to add to that?
Very well. Yes, what I want to add that we need to have a real paradigm shift of what ECOWAS does. You know, apart from just coming out with diplomatic bulletins, running through AU, condemning the act, appealing to us to, you know, get our act together.
Statements issuing institutions.
Yes, it requires the real research, as my friend alluded, that we need to see. Look, when you talk about the percentages of intracontinental trade, what are we doing about it? We have the European number, we have the Asian number, but we are still not doing that and doing the external. I believe we have not really weaned ourselves off from colonial. We are 60 plus years and we keep on with all the rhetorics, but in action it is there. We aren't there. And we need to get our act together to start doing really what is expected of us. And that is a call to all the leaders of the African continent, that we must really do intra-African trading. AfTA has been on the news, but what is in action? We talked about shipping. We talked about connectivity between Lagos and Tema, Takrali. I just shared with you what the refinery in Lagos is even talking about. So unless we're able to do that, we'll come again to talk about crises that happen far from us and affect us so much because we are over-dependent on what happens so many miles away from us. Of course, we live in the global village, but we need to shore up our activities, our projections, our policy guidelines must be steered towards enhancing goodwill and real non-dependence on the external world.
I'd like us to look at the policy interventions to actually build supply chain resilience. But I'm told Anane is on the line. Anane from Lashibi. Hello, Anane. Thanks so much for your call.
Yes. Good evening. Yes. Yes. I would also like to know. I believe the fire in Ghana. Yes. Two, I know we refine oil to here in Tema. So what about all that? Since we drill oil and we refine oil here, so why are we going?
Anani, I think your line is not clear. Can you reposition yourself and call again, please? Thank you so much. So, Captain, my issue is, having discussed all of this and looked at challenges and look at, how huge the impact is going to be, I think it's time for us to start looking for policy interventions, at least to build a supply chain resilience system. What do you recommend?
Our recommendation is when our leaders go for the meetings or when our economic ministers, we should just take stock of products that are in Africa and what is the disparity between other countries and whether we can source them from our sister countries. And that is, I believe, the bedrock of all our issues. So that if we have oil, we have refineries, we have the salt industry, we have the cotton industry, and so many things. How can we trade amongst ourselves? But we can only do that when we really take stock of things that are in our countries, Africa reference, so that then we know that we don't have to go far. We don't have to depend on the Middle East West African service to get our products to serve our supermarkets. We don't have to go to the Far East West Africa service. We don't have to be dependent on the UK West African line service. We have to see things that I can get from Nigeria, from the Congo, from South Africa, from Kenya. And once we get all these things at a common base, it's like I'm, rehashing the issues about after. But the practicalization of all the beautiful things that we have written is the solution to our woes.
Right. Thank you so much, Captain Micah. Mr. Siedu Date, you want to add?
I'm fully aligned with what Captain Micah just said. Quite frankly, the existing regional frameworks, the AFTA, the ECOWAS, and the Lomé Charter on Maritime Transport, set a good foundation. Yeah. But what is now left is the political will. There must be a will to act. So he talks about the fact that, yeah, you have it beautifully sitting in the books, but how is it in reality? There must be a political will to transition from theory to practice, And then we must also put our money where our mouth is and invest in some infrastructure, that would ensure that in terms of logistics, in terms of intermodal facilities that support cross-border institutions and facilities that facilitate trade, and all of that should be put in place. Then also we must be very deliberate about building institutional capacity, to ensure that the institutions that have been set to do, specific actions are not just sitting there in name, and that they are taking action to actualize the very lofty ideas that have been agreed and documented in these documents that we have mentioned. Yeah. I would want to use the opportunity also then to maybe compliment my colleagues at the Ghana Export Promotion Authority. They have, again, working through the AFTA, have introduced or instituted the Guided Trade Initiative. And so I think 2 years ago, they were in Kenya, and they've set up, a facility in Kenya that markets Ghanaian products in Kenya. They have followed that up with Tanzania. And now I understand the Kenyans are also coming here to establish a similar facility. And I think that is the way to go. And, we must all give it some fuel so that, we can see these things in our lifetime and see Africa thrive.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fred Asiedu Date. Remember, he is the head freight and logistics Ghana Shippers Authority, and Captain Francis Kwesi Micah. He's a maritime consultant. I'm so grateful for your time, for this educative conversation. My producer is trying to tell me something, that he's a former harbour master of the port of Tema. That should be Captain Micah, I guess. Captain, thanks so much for your time. Remember to watch the repeated edition or the abridged version on GTV. Is at 8:30 Wednesday. And remember, we are sponsored by the Serene Insurance. We are sponsored by Serene Insurance, Ghana Revenue Authority, Gold PLC, Ghana Link Network Services, Meridian Port Services, and Phoenix Insurance. And remember, we're proudly powered by the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority. Next week, same time, God willing, we'll be here discussing another interesting topic that will help you and I and move Ghana forward. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Many thanks for watching. Enjoy your evening.